The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Friday, June 16, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been away for a few days, so we have some news to catch up on, as well as some announcements that I want to make sure that I get out to you. This Sunday at 5 p.m., I will be joining my friends Marcus Ferrell and Mondale Robinson. That's Mayor Mondale Robinson now. He's mayor of his hometown. And we will be doing a special episode of Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. Now, we've reached out to Dr. Cornel West and his team to see if we can get him on the show with us on Sunday. And we're also trying to get Dr. West on other platforms. But the fastest and the most direct way for us to connect with Dr. West is through Marcus. Marcus has the longest standing relationship with Professor West. And so we're looking to see if we could have him to join us on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So put that on your calendar. If he's unable to join us, the three of us are still going to connect, and we're going to discuss the campaign of Dr. Cornel West, which since the last time we met, he has transitioned from, or at least publicly announced, that he is no longer going to be running with the People's Party. He is going to be running with the Green Party. That's good news, and that's bad news. If I'm going to keep it 100 with you, and I hope that we can, right? I hope that we're not in a space where we have to take one of these talking points that are so popular with either group, those who want to see Dr. West run and those who don't want to see him run. I think it is a great thing as well as a bad thing that he is now running for the Green Party. I think it's phenomenal for Dr. West to no longer be associated with the MPP party, with the so-called People's Party, because of all of the baggage, because of the lack of organization ability, because of the harassment allegations, because Dr. West would have burned his entire legacy on behalf of some random white guy who started a party back in 2016. Okay. So I was vehemently opposed to him being affiliated with that party. Now he's running for the Green Party, and the paperwork has not, if I'm not mistaken, the official transition has not taken place as of yet. So those of you who are looking to make donations to Dr. West's campaign, don't do it until he is officially over there at the Green Party, because you want to make sure that your information, your data, as well as your money does not go to the People's Party, because the People's Party, the movement for People's Party, is not a People's Party. All right. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is, well, Dr. West is in a much better position now to be successful, which will 100% without question give the election to one of the fascists. One of them, Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. Now, nobody, again, let me start this conversation by saying, do exactly what you want to do in the election of 2024, in the primaries, in the elections. Do what makes you feel good. I have to start with that because of how personal voting is for everyone. Voting is like as personal as like a religious decision, like being religious. I mean, people get emotional, people get angry, people get excited, people get, they really feel, and whether or not you feel like this, I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but it is so personal to most people that they feel like they are making a spiritual decision, a decision that's based on their personal morality. And if they vote the wrong way, if they're forced or someone tries to shame them, then they act accordingly. And I get it. I understand. I don't think anyone should be out here vote shaming. Simultaneously, I am going to call a spade a spade. The more successful Dr. West is, the more likely one of those fascists will win. It is just a statistical, almost formulaic. People may not want to say that, right? That's not the cool thing to say on the left right now, right? Brianna Joy Gray has found her sweet spot where she can, say, oh, nobody has to vote for Joe Biden. Okay. Yeah. No, they don't. That's a really popular position to have as a leftist right now. You're going to get all kind of miles out of it. You're going to get all kind of patrons off of it. You're going to get all kinds of retweets. You can make a lot of hay being in the opposition to Joe Biden for many reasons. That's Joe Biden's fault, mind you. It's the Democratic Party's fault. Listen, Like, if you can't handle nuance, this is not the show for you. Because we're going to go all the way around this issue and we're going to address every single aspect of it. Because one, I am super glad that Cornel West is no longer running with the MPP party, right? That's a good statement. I'm super concerned about the fact now he's running for the Green Party. Well, the Democrats have given people every reason they need to throw up their hands and to say, you know what, let's go support the Green Party. And even furthermore, like if we break this down based on the black community. So this Sunday, again, this Sunday at 5:00, I'm going to be speaking with Marcus Ferrell and Mondale Robinson. We're going to be doing a special episode of Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. We're expecting to have Professor Cornel West, or at least we have invited him, and we know that it's last minute, but I know that Dr. West is on the ground. He's doing interviews all over the place. And I know that Marcus has a long-standing relationship with them, and the show Clickbaity, we've had him on. It was a phenomenal episode. So we're looking forward to having him again. If we do not have Dr. West on this Sunday at 5 p.m., we're still broadcasting. And then next Sunday at 5 p.m., we're going to try to give Dr. West more time to be able to show up so that we can discuss these things, because I think that there is a strategy. I think that there is a strategy that we can employ that will both help the Green Party and Dr. West get the percentage points that they need necessary to move the third party movement in this country forward. I think anybody who is a person of good faith will say that no matter what, we do need more than two parties in this country. But then two, the second part of the strategy is to ensure that neither one of those fascists get into power, because that is the number one priority to me. It may not be the number one priority for you, which is why I think we have to be extremely strategic. People need to be able to vote according to their conscience, but we also need to ensure that these fascists do not get in power. And if I add a third one, the third thing that the strategy should employ is to send a message to the Democratic Party that you're not the sole power source for political engagement for the progressive movement, but most of all, the black community. You are not, and you cannot be, because you have not demonstrated the concern to actually give us policy that helps us out. That's got to happen. But it cannot come at the expense of allowing fascists to take over. I absolutely believe the number one threat to this country are those fascists in the Republican Party who are playing for keeps. They are playing for keeps. If I could be redundant, I want to say it one more time. They are playing for keeps. They will overturn this democracy. They will do it by force if necessary, but if we give them access to the Supreme Court, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the White House, plus not to mention every single state that they hold, every state house that they hold, every state that they have a Republican governor in, they almost have enough political power on the state level to call their own constitutional convention. Do you think they won't? And what is their driving force? What is their number one driving force right now? Hatred and bigotry. Hatred of the LGBTQIA community, bigotry and hatred towards the black community, bigotry and hatred towards anyone that's not a white Christian man. And they're organized, and they have organized successfully around that hatred and that bigotry. Like I said, that these past 2 years, we've seen the conservative movement coalesce in a fashion like we haven't seen in our lifetime. They have boots on the ground. They have fascist fangs out, with their boots on the ground, in the form of the Patriot Front, in the form of the Boogaloo Boys, in the form of the Proud Boys, in the form of the Three Percenters, in the form of the Oath Keepers. And that's just naming 5 off the top of my head. They have militias with boots on the ground. They have political operatives operating on the school board level, on the city council level, and on the county level in the forms of Moms for Liberty. Just one example of the many groups who are well funded and well organized, working on behalf of this right-wing fascist movement. They have boots on the ground. They have political operatives at every level. And they have, of course, the media infrastructure that's necessary to create these narratives that are completely false. But that doesn't matter, so long as they can get critical mass, to get political action, and to scare their base into a frenzy. They have religious institutions behind them. They have financial institutions behind them. And, oh, by the way, they have Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who has made it clear that he's willing to put his weight, his thumb on the scales for fascism. That's what we're fighting against. It's a shame that the Democratic Party isn't in a position where we could strongly say that they are our champions against this. That's not true. They are not, which is why the conversation around Dr. West has to be had, especially now that he has institutional power to get ballot access in a lot of key states. The Democratic Party needs to pay attention, and they don't need to mess this up by trying to attack Dr. West personally, because that's going to get everybody and their mama, including me, to go off on the Democrats. So the Democrats cannot afford to mess this up because the fascists are here, and we absolutely have to stop them. So this Sunday, 5 o'clock, I'll be speaking with Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap, and we're hoping that we'll have Dr. West on this Sunday. If not, we'll certainly have him for next Sunday. And also, while we're making that announcement, this Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, like it or not, with Rebecca Azor and DJ Exclusive, that's going down. Patreon.com/The BPD Show. And we'll be right back. I want you to listen to this clip of two clips. The first clip is Senator Josh Hawley, and I want you to listen to his language as it pertains to a national religion and how what he says in this clip, he just bakes it into the conversation that Christianity is the official religion of the United States of America. He gives this sentiment. Now, this is not anything new. This is not anything groundbreaking, but I want to play it. And then I want to juxtapose it with another clip from Right Wing Watch that really shows you where we are headed in this country, particularly as it pertains to LGBTQIA rights. I have a lot of people, or not a lot, but some people who ask me, Ben, how are you a Christian and a man of faith and a preacher and all that, and you support LGBTQIA rights? Well, because I've always known that you should punch Nazis, that you should be on the side of the people who are being targeted and oppressed. See, that's my faith. My religion says if there is an oppressor, you oppose them. That's my Christian faith, right? That's when I read the story of Moses. That's what I read. I don't read the story of Moses and then say, oh, yes, definitely, Moses was woke. You know, this is the reading. This is the interpretation that so many right-wing evangelicals, white evangelicals, and Christian nationalists have. They have an interpretation of the Bible that allows them to be the oppressor, that allows them to sit in the seat of the scornful, in complete opposition to what Psalms 1 says. So, you know, I want you to really feel the urgency that I have as a Christian when I tell you that the biggest threat to humanity is Christian nationalism and theocratic fascism. Here's Senator Josh Hawley.
Here's my proposition to you. This country's national faith has been a simple but profound one, and I can summarize it in 3 words: God, family, nation. God, family, nation. Now, let me just get something out of the way real quick. The left absolutely hates it when you mention God or the Bible, right? I mean, they just lose their mind.
I don't. Actually, I mean, I pray about 5 times a day. You know, I preach, a pastor, I teach, I do whatever. I love the Lord. He heard my cry and pitied my every groan. Long as I live and trouble rise, I'll hasten to his throne. Like, I don't, and I'm as far as left as you can get. Quiet as a skip. I got a lot of friends who think they're more radical to me, but that's a whole other conversation. I digress. I forget about that last part. That's the bait. Here's how easily have we fallen into a period where now we are accepting that the national faith, what national faith? Are we forgetting the First Amendment to the United States Constitution? Right? Are we forgetting the very yes, they did forget it. They don't care, quite frankly. They don't care that what they're doing is unconstitutional because they're more interested in having a theocratic fascist state than they are having a democracy. These are people who are very serious about turning this country into Gilead, into the Republic of Gilead from The Handmaid's Tale. And it is so bad and so far gone that even Ted Cruz, the Eddie Monster looking, booger eating, cuckold Ted Cruz, who supported Donald Trump, though he called his wife ugly. Ted Cruz, who I normally have zero good things to say about him, he at least recognizes with the particular law that just passed in Uganda, the anti-LGBTQ, the death penalty law in Uganda that was sponsored by American white evangelicals, Ted Cruz even recognizes that they are going too far. And so Ted Cruz has come out in opposition. Folks, this is where we are. Ted Cruz has had to come out in opposition to the death penalty for being gay. Ted Cruz, folks, who as far as I'm concerned, is part of the deplorables. But apparently we are so far gone in this country that he has some sense. He's drawn the line. He's drawn the line, and he's drawn the line at killing gay people. Do you understand where we are when a sitting United States senator has to publicly go against his own party because they are starting to go down the road towards calling for the public execution of gay people? Here's a clip. I want you to listen closely to this clip from last week at the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. They held a conference at Liberty University. Listen to this clip of Jameson Taylor, who starts to lecture. He's lecturing Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz draws the line at executing gay people. This is how far gone we are. Listen in.
Senator Cruz seems to have forgotten that following British law, the American colonies imposed the death penalty for sodomy. Thomas Jefferson, among others, sought to change these laws, calling instead for castration. And that was because he wanted to reserve the death penalty only for murder and treason. Likewise, the very lenient Quakers in Pennsylvania preferred to punish sodomy with whipping, forfeiture of 1/3 of one's property, and 6 months hard labor for a first offense. I would thus refer Senator Cruz to hashtag American Founding and hashtag Divine Law and Natural Law.
So calmly, he's not speaking with the fervor of one of these evangelical pastors that I play the clip for. They say it a little more clearly and a little more succinctly.
Does God say is the answer, is the solution for the homosexual in 2022, here in the New Testament, here in the book of Romans, that they are worthy of death? These people should be put to death. Every single homosexual in our country should be charged with the crime, the abomination of homosexuality that they have. They should be convicted in a lawful trial. They should be sentenced with death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. That's what God teaches.
See, this is just your Sunday morning sermons, right? But throughout the week, you have conferences where people like Jameson and the American Family Association, they get up there and they say these things calmly, right? They try to give a historical and a philosophical on top of a religious justification for killing gay people. This is what we're dealing with. Okay, so I hope people understand, like the first voice was that of Josh Hawley, who is a sitting senator, right? And the second voice was that of a powerful operative lecturing a sitting senator who decides that he's too uncomfortable with the idea of killing gay people just because they're gay. And that third voice was the type of sermons that you are getting every single Sunday across this country from white evangelicals. So please, I do hope you all understand why I prioritize. As a Christian, I'm telling you, this is just the beginning, okay? This is just the beginning of them push. They're even merging with their former nemesis. The way they hated Muslims, the way they still hate Muslims, but they're willing to put that hatred to the side just a little bit so that they can get some gay people executed. I want to read I know this is going to be a long episode. This is what happens when I miss 2 days in a row. We haven't even done the patron party yet. So I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to play more audio for you from these ridiculously zealotrous, demagogues who want to kill people because they're gay. And then I also want to read to you a tweet from a Muslim scholar who, and I put scholar in quotes because he's using his scholarship to align with these white nationalists. Why? because, well, they share a common hatred for the LGBTQIA community. And I want you to really think about, what does it mean for us to have an administration in the White House at this particular time when all the other chess pieces are in place for them to actively take measures towards this? I mean, they honestly intend on executing gay people simply because they are gay. We'll be back after this.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Cheer. Welcome back. I want to read you a portion of this tweet from Dr. Yashir Qadi, who is an Islamic theologian and scholar, Dean of Academic Affairs at the Islamic Seminary of America. And in his bio, he says that he holds a PhD from Yale University. I want to read it because I need to juxtapose this sentiment, this unification point is really what it is between fundamentalist Christians and fundamentalist Muslims who historically have like literally been at war with each other. But then just recently, the evangelicals, the white evangelicals of this country literally waged a holy war called the quote unquote war on terror against the Muslims across this globe. Okay. Funny thing that happens when you can find common ground in your bigotry. Because what has happened now, as we discussed last week, we saw those Muslim children, school-age children, they couldn't have been more than 8, 9, 10 years old at the most, at a demonstration with white Christian nationalists in Canada. And these children, these Muslim children, were stomping on LGBTQIA flags, right? So there's this opportunity for unity that exists through bigotry and common hatred of the LGBTQIA community. And for those who understand the danger that Christian fundamentalism poses, especially when it's rooted in this level of hate that really supersedes any other type of hate. I mean, I know they hate black people. Listen, I know in the United States of America, white supremacy is the culprit. And I know that they hate black people. But folks, when I tell you there is no hate like the hate we are seeing gathering around the LGBTQIA community, and then just imagine when they marry together, the Christian fundamentalists and the Islamic fundamentalists. Dr. Yashir Qadi on Twitter had a very long post. I'm not going to read all of it because it's just too long and filled with so much junk, but I want to cut to the core of it. At the top salvo of the tweet, I guess 3,000 character tweets, he pays for Twitter. At the top, he complains that, you know, back in the day, it used to be the right, the religious right, who were attacking him. Yes, they were. It was called the War on Terror. And in fact, the War on Terror is still going on. It's just being throttled down a little bit so that they can engage in the war on the LGBTQIA community, which you, Dr. Yashir, you're a part of. He said, the group that claimed to be tolerant and avoid crass stereotypes has resorted to the exact same intolerance and crass stereotypes, but against their own fellow Muslims. He's speaking to progressive Muslims who have been calling him out. He said, and why? Because someone has told them that fahisha, which translates into sexual crimes, should not be tolerated and that we should not promote the actions of Sodom. At least the right resorted to slander to fight what they thought was jihad. The left is resorting to promoting drag queens at schools. Strange times we live in. If anything, in my brief analysis of the left and right really overlapped, and many of their tactics and outlooks can be seen to be validated with these recent responses. To Allah we complain, and to him we trust. Just a few years ago, It was the religious right in this country that gave George W. Bush the quote unquote spiritual covering that he needed to justify his war on terror that killed hundreds of thousands of Muslims across this globe. But now, because religious zealots of multiple religions see common ground that they can unify in order to oppose the LGBTQIA community's right to exist, that's what we're dealing with. Their right to exist, because we're dealing with people who are calling for the execution of them in the name of protecting our children. But we've seen in our last episode how many of our children fall prey to priests, pastors, preachers. And I wonder how many of them fall prey to clerics. But these far right-wing fundamentalists of every religious stripe, they agree on their hatred of the LGBTQIA community. So former enemies are now uniting in order to execute the LGBTQIA community. It's completely insane to me that marginalized groups can turn on a dime and begin to marginalize other groups. I think it's completely foolhardy, because at the end of the day, once they are done, once the people who actually have the power, white Christian nationalists, once they are done executing the LGBTQIA community, do you think that they're going to forget how much they hate Muslims? Here is another preacher who calls for the death of gay people, but he wants to make sure that you know he doesn't like Muslims either.
That is just perversion and filth. It's sick. And there's no new thing under the sun. There's organizations like that one today, and there's Muhammad, that pedophile, false prophet who's burning in hell right now. Hey, piss be upon Muhammad. Piss be upon that false religion that's damning people to hell, that's condoning pedophilia. Hey, we need to call it out. Muslims need to wake up today, get saved, and turn from their false religion.
I mean, that's what they really think of you. That's what they really think of adherents of other faiths. They see you as someone who has to be opposed just as much. But right now, if you're willing to join with them in their crusade against gay people, then they're willing to turn a blind eye just long enough for you to help them get power enough to do it. And then once they have power enough to do it, they are coming after you, just like they're coming after Ben Shapiro with his yarmulke on. Every single day he's doing the bidding of Nazis and white supremacists who cannot wait for the opportunity to throw him up on the wall, just like they want to throw the LGBTQIA up on the wall, just like they want to throw Muslims on the wall and black people on the wall. You know, I think what I try to do on this show, especially in this season, is I try to sound the alarm as loudly as I can about the threat that Christian fundamentalism poses to humanity, and how easy it is to co-opt and use the language of religion for the purposes of harming others and to gain political power. We've seen that historically. The irony, of course, is I am probably more religious, spiritual than 99.9% of every conservative who's out here, you know, talking about how much they love Jesus. And it's not a competition. You know, I don't say that to try to rank myself higher than them, because that's a futile competition. I say that to warn you, those who are not religious, those who may not understand religion, all those kind of, I say this to warn you, because I know what being a zealot is. You should be concerned about the religious zealots gaining political power and vying for political power right now. Because I know what being a religious zealot is, I feel like that should be the number one concern. that everyone has right now. I do believe that the concern around religious fundamentalism gaining even more power in this country should supersede all other political considerations right now. That's my personal belief. That's not one I'm going to push on you, which is why instead of me telling you what you should do to vote in 2024, we're going to have a conversation around it. Don't forget Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be with Clickbaity and we'll be discussing that. Hopefully we'll be discussing it with Dr. Cornel West. Stay tuned. I am putting in this season far more emphasis on the threat of religious zealotry than I normally do, and I am going to continue to do it from the perspective of a religious zealot myself. I just so happen to be on the side of liberation. Game recognizes game, extremism recognizes extremism. I had to come to terms with myself over the last few years and realize, wow, Ben, you're you're a zealot yourself, Ben. You know, you are your own version of an extremist, and that's okay. Somebody has to be, for the good reason. I mean, if they have all of the zealots on their side pushing this nonsense, pushing this religious hatred and bigotry, trying to destroy humanity as a result of their religious zealotry, my God, can we not have somebody on our side fighting with the same fervor? So when I put emphasis on my faith and I juxtapose it to their faith, it's because I need you to understand more than anything else what we are up against. We are up against religious extremism that is society destabilizing. We are up against the type of religious extremism that will usher in a new dark ages and call it a victory for the name of the Lord Jesus Christ because, well, at least they would have killed some gay people. That's the kind of religious zealotry that we're dealing with on the other side of the equation. And I can identify it because I was raised in some of the same circles. I just happen when I hear the story of liberation and Moses' liberation of the children of Israel, I don't side with Pharaoh, I side with the oppressed. And when I hear people like Ron DeSantis in this next clip talk about how much he would love to have hung out with Jesus and the 12 disciples, I know enough about religious dogma to know that Ron DeSantis would have been on the side of the people calling to crucify Jesus if for no other reason than Jesus was woke.
You know, in terms of, throughout history, I mean, I think could I have been there with Jesus's disciples? I mean, these are people who, Peter's just fishing one day and all of a sudden this guy comes up to him, catches all the fish and says, you're going to be fisher. I want you to be a fisher of men. Come with me. And so these guys all went out and they dedicated their life to spreading the gospel. And they all were killed for, they tried to kill John. John ended up, being able to survive. But I mean, the intent was to put him to death too. And, to talk about what that was like, talk about what their impressions are, what of that. I look back at that and would love to have been able to be there with them.
And you know what I recognize also? How easy it is to use the language of religion to make oneself seem like you are moral when underneath you're nothing more than a cesspool of nothing but pure hatred and idolatry. Ron DeSantis would have crucified Jesus. One, because Jesus was out here flipping tables, chasing the money changers out of the temple, chasing the capitalists out of the temple. That's when in the Bible, do you realize in the Bible that the people did not decide, the Pharisees and the Sadducees did not decide to kill Jesus until after he chased them out of the temple. That's when they conspired to kill Jesus. What side do you think Ron DeSantis would have been on? Right? Jesus out here healing people for free. What side do you think Ron DeSantis would have been on? Jesus out here telling the woman at the well that he doesn't condemn her, neither should anyone else condemn her. What side do you think Ron DeSantis would have been on? Jesus out here liberating people, saying that literally his mantle, he came and said, I have come to set at liberty the captive. Whose side do you think Ron DeSantis would have been on? The disciples or the ones calling to crucify Jesus? I have an ask. I have an ask of you, and I'm making this entire episode public because I was gone for the last 2 days, but I have an ask. Would you leave a comment in the comment section of wherever you're listening to this? If you're listening to it on Patreon, leave a comment. Spreaker, you can leave comments. All the places that we go, or come to Twitter and share your thoughts with me, because I have an ask of you. I really need to be let loose to deal with these people from a religious perspective, like even more. I know over the last 10 years of this show, I have focused primarily on politics from the progressive perspective. And those of you who have been patrons, we discuss faith at different times, and you all know exactly who I am. But I really need folks to kind of understand how much of a bind we are in when it comes to the religion that is being wielded against society right now. Me being I'm not even a moderate Christian. I'm a leftist, a radical leftist Christian because, well, that's really what the Bible calls for, right? If you look at the book of James, the book of Deuteronomy, they both have express condemnations of paying your workers unfair wages. It condemns it. It literally says God will intervene if you don't pay your workers right? So there is an extreme, what they would call a radical leftist Marxist interpretation of the Bible. Well, that's where I'm from. I'm also from the school of religious thought that understands that you cannot force Christianity on anyone and expect it to actually be acceptable in God's eye. You could do it through the force of law. I mean, goodness, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make America a Christian nation with the force of law, including the penalty of death for homosexuality. That's what they want. That's not acceptable to God, not according to our own Bible. It is freely accepting Christianity. Not a single one of you under the sound of my voice who are atheist, agnostic, or adherents of other faith, not a single one of you can be forced into Christianity and that actually be something recognized by the tenets of Christianity. It does not work. Whosoever will, let them come. If you don't want to come and worship what I worship, then cool. I'll see you at the baseball game. I'll see you at the football game. Right? That's the fundamental nature of Christianity, but not for these monsters. And even furthermore, what's amazing is that these monsters don't have to actually demonstrate any of the personality characteristic traits of Jesus, right? All they have to do is say, like Ron DeSantis said, oh, I would have loved to hang out with Jesus. He was making fisher of men. He remembers that story. Good on you. You know a little bit more about the Bible than Donald Trump, who called it 2 Corinthians. Okay. You know a little bit more about the Bible than Donald Trump, who said that he never asked for forgiveness before, right? That makes Ron DeSantis even more dangerous because he's more effective at communicating in this language that resonates with millions of Christians around this country. Millions of Christians who are being worked into a frenzy over the LGBTQIA community. Whew, we've got so many miles to go. I'm going to play this closing music, but everybody stay tuned. I want to keep talking to everyone today because, yeah, it's a real one. We got some real stuff going on here.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
We'll make it up. You put us together. We'll make it up. You put us together.
Yeah, so the question, welcome everyone. Normally this is where I greet the patrons. This is an open episode for everyone because, well, I was gone for 2 days and there's a lot on my mind, particularly on the intersection of religion and politics, because that's the reason why I am concerned about this next election. More than anything else, I'm concerned about this next election because we are but a few votes away from the Republican Party taking actionable measures to turn this country into a quote unquote Christian nation. We have a Supreme Court that has a conservative majority with the likes of Amy Coney Barrett on the bench, who was put there expressly for the purposes of executing the agenda of Christian nationalism. So it's not like we have a Supreme Court that will sort this out for our good. We made sure of that when we let Donald Trump get into power in 2016. What do you think is going to happen if one of those fascists get into power in 2024? I can tell you without question that religion is going to be the number one topic going into 2024 because conservatives are making it that way because they understand the lay of the political land. They have finally found an issue that helps them break through their racist barrier. They have had a racist barrier to getting political power with black votes because, well, Republicans are committed to their racism. They're committed to their Islamophobia. They are committed to their anti-Semitism. They are committed to those things. But guess what activates people's brains, black people's brains, Jewish people's brains, some Muslim people's brains, more so than the threat of the racism and anti-Semitism and the Islamophobia? For too many, the fear and hatred of the LGBTQIA community supersedes their racism radar. I mean, literally, folks will put down their fight against white supremacy and pick up their fight against the gay community. That is what the Republican Party is wielding right now in 2023 leading up to 2024. They will get more black votes than they have ever gotten if we stay on this trajectory right now. Why? Because you got black folks who are afraid and hate and scared of the LGBTQI community too. You got Muslims. Some I know, and again, clearly I know Muslim is not a race, but I'm just juxtaposing them side by side because those are the broad categories that the conservative movement is actively working in and through, right? So of course you have black Muslims, but is the Islamic faith as a whole right now is being recruited by the same people who carried out the war on terrorism. They are recruiting Muslims to their team because they have some of them have a shared common hatred of the gay community. Bro, they were just bombing you out of existence just a few weeks ago. You mean to tell me you're okay with siding with these people? Black folks, they are still trying to justify the murder of Jordan Neely, calling Daniel Penny, who got indicted, thank God, calling that man a good Samaritan, but you want to side with them because you don't like the gay stuff? They're actively trying to erase black history. But you're going to side with them because you don't like that gay stuff? This is why the 2024 election is going to be centered so much around religion. It's going to be sickening to a whole lot of you. But I just need to prepare you for it because that is the winning ticket for conservatism. Why? Because sadly, it is in human nature to seek some group to hate. I don't know why. I do. Pause. Let me pause. I 100% know why. That's because it's in our nature. It is in our human, excuse this word, fleshy nature to have hatred and bigotry or to blame and scapegoat, right? To find a community that we could point our fingers to and say they are the problem. Because it is religion itself, not your faith, not spirituality, none of the, but religion as a societal institution has historically used its power to target and scapegoat entire groups of people, leading to wars, leading to violence, leading to the inquisitions, leading to murder. And this is where we are in 2023 leading up to 2024. So yes, you guys are going to have to excuse me. I'm probably going to be far more publicly religious than I have ever been because that is where the battleground is. And it just so happens where I have my other set of bona fides, right? I have a good record in progressive politics, stand next to anybody who considers themselves a leftist. I am a leftist of all leftists. I don't even care what some of these rabble rousers say on the sidelines, right? But setting that aside, my truest credentials, my truest track record is in the church. And so when I say 2024 is leading up to be a religious battle, I'm more than happy. In fact, this is where my extremism comes in. This is where my religious zealotry comes in. I'm required to oppose these monsters. I am required as a matter of faith to stand up against these religious zealots who would destroy our ability to coexist as a human species. Those are the real enemies of humanity, of society, of progress, and the real enemies of the faith, my faith, the real enemies of Christ. I want to read this tweet. This tweet is not funny at all. I don't even know why I started with a chuckle, other than the fact of how absurd the patriarchy is. Patriarchy firmly rooted in religion. Wow, let me read it to you so that you can understand. This is some random user on Twitter. I'm not going to call their name out because, well, it's a Twitter user handle. But this is what they said. Quote, "So a woman's husband wanted sex with her, but she said no. Trigger warning, folks. This involves marital rape." Okay. Trigger warning. "So a woman's husband wanted sex with her, but she said no. She woke up in the middle of the night and he was having sex with her. She asked me if this was marital rape. It was the first time he had done this and he was never physically abusive towards her. I told her, no, don't even think like that. Don't destroy a marriage over this. Show grace. We aren't to deprive our husbands sexually, according to 1 Corinthians 7:5. Only physically abusive husbands rape their wives. If he wakes you up to have sex with you, go for it. Sex doesn't always need to be planned. Be spontaneous sometimes." Folks, that's the religious advice from a Christian. Folks, what is wrong with humanity? You know what's wrong with humanity is that we have a system that has been designed to cater to the needs of men no matter what, at all costs, even if it means marital rape. I don't think I have to say this for this audience, but I do think I just need to say it for the record. Non-consensual sex in marriage is rape. And the fact that I have to actually state that in response to a Christian woman's advice. Like, this is, I don't know if this is a pastor. She didn't identify herself as a pastor or as a counselor or anything like that. But she is offering this as advice to a woman who experienced this. Should highlight the complete and total absurdity of Christians running around proclaiming to be sexually moral or to have the quote unquote sexual morality high ground, when you are literally teaching women to accept rape in their marriage because they're not having sex with their husbands enough. Oh, I'm sorry, my guy. Is this like an inconvenient time for your sexual gratification? Is this period in your marriage too difficult for you such that you can't control your own penis, right? You are going to sexually assault your wife, but because he was gentle, it's not rape? Do you see the derangement here? Do you see the absurdity here? What's more, I'm wading into this particular tweet because we have to talk about the ways that this society completely capitulates to the sexual predilections of men. Like we genuinely are making horrific excuses for men because they did not get their rocks off. Look at how much of humanity has been destroyed because men can't control their penises. How much damage has been done to other human beings because men get to just be men. Boys get to be boys. Damn, whatever impact that has on other people. Who cares if now this wife in her marriage has to wonder if she can safely go to sleep and wake up the next morning without her husband having sexually assaulted her because she does not want to have sex. God forbid we actually have a society where everyone doesn't have to jump at the beckoning call of a man's penis. And it's not lost on me, and I'm sure it's not lost on you, that these are the same people who are trying to preach sexual morality. The same people who are trying to condemn the LGBTQIA community, how many of them have actively covered up, participated in, or just turned a blind eye to all of the crimes being committed by men because they can't control their penises, because they just gotta have sex? Listen, folks, if you want to talk about religious commitment and religious zealotry and being like 100% committed to the cause, these people are certainly not that, because they can't even stop their penises from making them rape their wives. They can't stop themselves from all of the sexual abuse that's happening in the Mormon church, the Catholic church, and the Southern Baptist churches. They can't prevent themselves. These preachers, these priests, these leaders who are telling you that you need to not be gay, they're the same people who are allowing themselves, who are actively participating in some of the most egregious sex crimes that this planet has ever seen. But they want to lecture you about sexual morality. And it is so bad that it's not just the men who are doing the active work of these crimes, but they're women who are making excuses for it in the name of Jesus. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much to our patrons. Please thank a patron, patreon.com/the BPD show, or just give them a shout out on Twitter. Thanks to our patrons for making this possible and for allowing this episode to be public, this full hour-long episode, where we're going to get close to an hour. It looks like it's going to be about 53 minutes. But this whole episode is public. We were gone for 2 days. In the midst of the organizing that I started again on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, we had an organizing meeting, a particular one that is spreading and growing. We are gaining some momentum in terms of the numbers of people who are showing up, and we're getting ready to start a new location on these organizing meetings that we're having. I'm keeping it very vague. I'm keeping it as vague as I can, just for for obvious reasons. You don't want to put too much out publicly for people to get a chance to stop what you're doing. But we are organizing. And as a result of that, on Tuesday, I kind of honestly, I have to admit, I got so caught up with all of the different angles that we're organizing from. We end up having more meetings after that. And then the next day, and it just really kind of got absorbed into the things that are happening on the ground. So because of that, I missed 2 episodes. And as a result of that, I'm letting this public episode, this full hour, be public. And that is made possible because of our patrons. You should join us. Patreon.com/the BPD show. We are a very diverse group of people. I mean, when you come to a patron party, shout out to all of our patrons. When you come to our patron party, you are likely to be surrounded by, some black Christians who will break out into a hymn if you mess around and play. If DJ Exclusive mess around and plays a Kirk Franklin song, you got plenty of black Christians in there who gonna be singing, right? Then you also have plenty of atheists and agnostics. I think there's a couple of Satanists in our group. We have people, the LGBTQIA community is present. We have trans people that are present, and we have a very ecumenical, diverse representation of coexistence, which at the end of the day is the very height of what we can achieve as humans, is the ability for us to coexist with each other despite our differences. And that is something I'm extremely proud of that goes on with our patrons, especially when we get together for our patron party. It's just something to see. And shout out to DJ Exclusive, who holds it down and makes that possible every other week. He's there and he's bringing the music and the joy of life. And I think you should join patreon.com/the BPD show so that you can see what coexistence looks like and how, even on the international stage, I mean, we have people from all over the globe who come and join us for these patron parties, and we sit there and we don't just listen to music, but we talk about policies, and everyone gives their position and where they're coming from. And it's just a really great experience. And I can't emphasize it enough, especially when we're living in a time where they're trying to divide us to the point of war. They're trying to divide us to the point of hatred and animosity. They're trying everything they can to ensure that we do not have coexistence, but we have one dogma at the top of society. And right now, that dogma that's vying for power the most right now is white Christian nationalism, theocratic fascism. And so I am honored to be able to provide a space where I am as Christian as any of those other people hope they could possibly be. But when we come together in unity and coexistence from all religious backgrounds, from all ethnicities and races and just different nations, nationalities, and religious beliefs. For sure. We really are a diverse group. Patreon.com/the BPD show. That's all I have for you today. Tomorrow morning, we will be live, like it or not, at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Rebecca Azor and DJ Exclusive, they will be holding it down. I will be there as well. And then on Sunday, again, a reminder, at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have a special episode of Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. We're still waiting to hear back from Professor Cornel West. We will be having the full conversation with him. And again, it's within the framework of everything we talked about in today's episode. So make sure that you're there for that. Otherwise, I will see the rest of you on Monday. Love you, mean it. See you next time.